Hey, you watching this video at home, let me guess something. Right now you're not feeling super dialed on your bike. That new bike you got seems a little bit off. Your friends are faster than you and you don't really progress. Well, maybe your problem is that those bars are too wide. So come with me and let's fix it. So, in case you don't know me, I'm a professional mountain biker. I've been riding many bikes, many parts, and most importantly, many trails all around the world. And for the past 20 years, I've focused on finding the best setup for myself, especially when it comes to cockpit. I've played with a lot of different scenarios, I learned a lot, and I want to share that with you. Now, if you are a cross-country rider, I'm not an expert, but if you enjoy trail riding, enduro, bike park, downhill, even e-biking, that video is definitely for you. So let's dive into it. Most trail bikes these days come with a pretty short stem, 30mm rise bar, and really wide bars actually. They are typically 800mm. They usually come uncut, and unless you're extremely tall, you should cut them down a little bit. So let's head up to One Up Components right now and grab a set for myself. 1760 35 for the stem, 35mm. The 180 post, 31x6. So I just picked up some new parts from One Up Components, which is a Squamish company and also a partner of this video. They make some rad stuff, handlebars of course, seat post, stem, and some other products. You can find everything actually on Jenson USA using the link in the description. Now let's head back home and chat about handlebars. So I looked basically everywhere online and I couldn't find a formula that exists that allows you to calculate how wide should be your bar based on your riding style and your size. Now though, there is a great one for calculating the optimal distance between top of the seat and middle of the bottom bracket, and it's called the Melamed formula. I actually use it to set up my bikes. It's pretty easy. You take your inseam. For me, for example, it's just above 80 centimeters. You time it by 0.883 and you get a magic number. That number for me is 70.5 centimeters, and I use it on every bike, road bike, mountain bike, and I find that works really well. So let's see if we can find out something similar to calculate how wide should be our bars. Some people suggest that you should be doing a few push-ups, and when you find the position where you feel the strongest to do push-ups, well, the distance between your two hands should be how wide your handlebar will have to be. So let's test out the theory. So this is probably where I feel the strongest. That's where I could do the most push-ups. So that's actually below 60 centimeters, which will mean my handlebar will have to be about 60 centimeters. Even in the 90s, I think that was pretty narrow. Nowadays, this doesn't make any sense. So that theory doesn't work. Let's find out something that works. So when we talk about handlebar, of course, we look at the width, but there is also something very important to talk about, which is the rise. One Up Components, for instance, offer 10mm, 20, 35, and even 50mm bars. Myself, I run a 35 carbon option on my Propane Eugene, but also my Tai, my Icano, and my downhill bike. But I go for a 50mm option on the Spindrift and the Stretch SL, which is right there. Why? Because I find that those two bikes have a stack that's a little bit low. If you don't know what the stack is the distance between the top of the frame and where the bottom bracket will be. The stack though is pretty easy to change. You can simply add or remove spacer below your stem, and that's actually something I play with all the time, depending on the type of riding I do, the type of trails, and also my suspension setup. When I run softer suspension, I tend to run more spacer below the stem. If I run a stiffer setup, a bit less, because the bike, once it's getting ridden, is gonna stay a little bit higher because of the suspension. There's more air and more compression that hold up the weight a little bit more. Another thing to look at is the length of the stem. I like to use 35mm stem. That's mostly because I like to run bikes that are fairly long. A fairly long reach, I guess for me, paired with a small stem, gives me the feeling of still having a pretty tight cockpit. So now if we look at the bars, in terms of length, I've noticed over the years that I went narrower and narrower. And that's because my bike got longer. As the reach got longer, I felt like I needed to go a little bit narrower on the handlebar in order to keep a consistent position. So that number for me right now in 2026 with the modern geometry is 738 millimeter, and I actually use the same length whether it's a 35 millimeter rise bar, a 50, whether it's on my downhill bike or on my light trail bike. I know some riders like to go wider on downhill bike because the tracks are faster and there is usually not as many trees as you will see on an enduro track where it's a little bit tighter. But 738 is narrow enough that I can keep it consistent across all bikes, and for me that consistency is really important. The roll of my bars, which is how forward or backward you put it, is also really consistent with all of my bikes, which I find is really key to feel comfortable on bike. As you can see, I've got a bunch of bikes, so obviously it's really important for me to feel at home whenever I go on any bike. By the way, talking about bikes, I have to share with you a discount code, of course. Propane gave me a code for the Eugene, the Spindrift and the Tai in North America, and in Europe, Eugene, Spindrift, Tai, but also the Stretch SL and the Terrell. Use the code REMI15 for the next couple of weeks and you'll be saving 15% off. I'm gonna put a link down below. So now those bars, they cut at 738, and what will be really interesting will be to compare that with other riders, because I've been playing with it a fair amount and I'm really confident that that number works really well for me. But what if another pro rider that is the same size as me was using a completely different setup? It's actually not easy to talk about cockpit and explain why something will work for you or will not work. I'm really happy with my setup. I just wish I could chat with some really fast guys to see what they think and how is their setup. Oh, Jackson Goldstone, how are you doing?
What's up? How's it going, Remy?
Good. Congrats on your season.
Awesome.
You made all of us dream. It was really cool watching that. So
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for coming. So obviously you live in Squamish. You've got the one-up components, bars as well, stem. So I want to chat about your setup because we're actually pretty much same size. How tall are you?
Yeah, I'm like 5'7", like 170 centimeters. So
Yeah.
pretty
So same as me, and from watching you rip on those World Cup tracks, it sounds like your setup is like super different from mine. So can you walk us through? Let's start with your downhill bike.
Yeah, so this is the spare downhill bike. It's absolutely identical to the race bike that I've got. It's just in pieces right now getting worked on. So yeah, we've got the spare bike here, but it's all the same. So yeah, I run the 35 mil carbon bar from one up, 45 mil stem, and then yeah, I run them at 785 width.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
so
actually
quite
really
wide.
wide, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of my setup, and then stack height varies depending on track and stuff, so that's something we might change, but for the most part, the rest of those other numbers kind of stay the same throughout the most of the season.
Okay, and I see your bars are actually rolled very far forward. That's also pretty atypical.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely something that's a bit weird to look at as a first-time looker, like someone who hasn't seen it before would be like, what's that? But yeah, it's kind of just what I like, and basically what my idea is, it kind of gets rid of the sweep in the handlebars and kind of straightens them out, which kind of just makes me feel like it pushes my elbows and kind of gets me into a bit of a better riding position. So, I mean, there's definitely like a point where it goes too much and it's kind of a negative effect, but I feel like I've pushed it kind of as far as I want to go, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm at.
Yeah, because typically if you see someone on the trail that's got their bar rolled this forward, you
They
just
look like a kook, yeah.
yeah,
I'll be honest.
you just assume that their bike is too small.
Yeah.
So they try to make the bike longer by just rolling the bar forward, but
Yeah, exactly.
obviously you get to try all the different size and you get to play with the headset cups as well.
Yeah, I do run a pretty long reach and a pretty long wheelbase as well. Pretty big bike for my size.
Yeah. I see you got a bunch of spacer below the stem. Basically, you're as high as possible. So why would you not go for a 50mm rise bar?
I've actually tried it, and it was good. It almost fixed kind of the stem issue there, but yeah, I kind of just didn't quite get used to it because I needed to roll them quite far forward to get that kind of flatter bar that I was talking about, and with the higher rise, that kind of meant that the reach was pushed even farther forward, and it was just a little bit too much for me to get used to. And I didn't want to like change my wheelbase by going back to adjust all that kind of stuff, so yeah, just kept it the same and went back to the 35 mil.
And it sounds like it's working well, so.
It did work well. Yeah, I played with that going into last season, kind of this.
Yeah, I remember seeing a video of you actually in Cyprus with a 50.
Yeah.
Just quickly, you got a trail bike with you. Do you change much in terms of bar width and bar height on your trail bike versus your downhill bike?
Yeah, I do kind of change the size of my bars a little bit going through the bike range. E-bikes, I'd probably run 775. Trail bikes, like longer travel trail bikes, about 775 as well. This bike is like a 120 shorter travel bike, so I got this one at like 165 or 170. So yeah, kind of just depending on bike size and travel, I change it up a little bit, but that's
And something I've noticed, depending on the reach of the bike, so especially on a downhill bike, since you have the headset cup, when you do some testing and you end up going a bit longer, a bit shorter or whatever, do you feel that it impacts how wide your bar should be?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a fix. Is if you go longer, you could shorten your bars to kind of get your arms in a bit more. That would work for like maybe tighter trails or something where you're going by trees or something like that. But yeah, kind of just want to keep everything as neutral as possible still. And yeah, this is where we've landed.
Okay, well Jackson, thank you so much. Thanks for coming. And yeah, keep on making us dream. Best of luck for this season. And okay, we're gonna go and see someone else now.
Yeah, boy.
Okay, how about if we ask now one of the all-time best enduro racer? What do you think? Should we get Jesse? How are you doing, Jesse?
Thanks, yourself.
Good. So that's your bike.
Yep.
Can I see those bars? So you get as well 35mm rise from one up.
Yep.
How wide are those?
They're cut to 730, but I come from 720s, and so with the Goldstone grips, like they have this at least 5 mil, like probably 10 mil on the end. So like where I'm actually riding is probably 720.
But so okay, so that's where you cut them out.
Cut to 730, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I see your roll compared to Jackson is it's still like fairly forward.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's forward. I try to bring my weight forward onto the bike just to help me kind of weight the front wheel. So
to get like more, I guess, more grip when you're cornering.
I think for me in enduro racing, like you get so tired and you kind of like start sagging. I need to be forced over the front, otherwise you start like falling into your bike. So the forward wheel just helps me with that.
So you can like keep that like attack position, I guess.
Yeah.
It's more forward than me, but definitely less than Jackson.
Yeah.
Have you seen his setup?
I have heard. I thought I was going pretty far forward, but
like
his is more than that.
Like his is like, yeah, it's
Does
quite...
he run the 40 mil rise? Or like
no, 35.
35, yeah.
Yeah, he tried the 50, but
the 50, yeah, that's what it is.
didn't like quite work out for him. So like similar to you, 35.
I want the 50s, but I can't cut them short enough. So
yeah, fair enough.
They come in 800, but these are sick because they come in 760, so I actually get like a soft bar. Yeah. Which I haven't. I've been cutting 800 bars for forever. So.
But why would you want to run the 50? Because your stack is actually not that high.
I'd probably still go higher though. On some of my other bikes, I got larger stacks, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's pretty. Well, I mean,
I just think they look cool too.
Stack is also, I mean, I guess has to be like proportional to your reach and stuff. Like if you have an insane stack but a super tiny reach, that doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
Stem length?
40 on this
Okay.
bike. or 42.
Yeah, 42 millimeter. So have you, because I see that your frame, I heard you had like a custom made frame, but your reach is like brought like even closer.
So it goes from 430 to 440, and 440 was kind of closer to where my Rocky Mountain was. And when I tested the first couple bikes from Canyon, 430, I was on a 419 to begin with. Okay. And I was just like, I had so much maneuverability. And so this comes at a 430, but I tried longer ones and kind of always went back. Just Europe's so tight, so it's just getting the small bike around the corner.
And if we go back to the bars, like the reason for you riding like such narrow bars, is it because you like how the bike corners, or is it to get away as much as possible from the trees?
That adds up a lot, getting away from the trees, like not having to think and not clipping your bars a lot. But also I did some calculations of like Jack Moyer or Richie and how tall these guys are and what the bars are cut to. Like Jack and Richie, Jack's on like a 750 or something, like way narrower than he should be for a 6'2". Yeah. Richie's was on a 740 at some point. So like these guys are way bigger, and I did like the proportion, and I was supposed to be on like a 710 based on their like that ratio. So I tried going narrower, and then I didn't feel like I lost anything. And then like especially in Scotland, like the trees are so tight, I don't have to think. I don't have to dodge out of the trees as much. It actually like makes a pretty big difference.
And so you've done a few downhill World Cups, and on those obviously there's still trees, but it's less of an issue than enduro.
I went narrow even at Mont Saint Anne. I think I was at a 740, and then I was talking to the mechanics, and I was like, guys, I want to go narrower, but I feel crazy, and they're like, just do it. So I cut them to 730, and I liked it because for me the bike was big, so the bike was already kind of stable. I didn't really need stable steering, and I feel like I'm pretty strong on the front end, and I can drive my bike. So yeah, I was at 730. I think now I went back to a 740 just because I got new one-up bars and I didn't want to like cut them too short and then not be able to go.
And I think that's a big challenge of most people. The reason why they don't necessarily try shorter bars is because they're scared that, you know, once you cut it, obviously you can't go back. In terms of how the bike tips like side to side, like do you notice having like narrower or wider bars that it makes like much of a difference?
No, because I think most of the time I want a bike that's big, and so even if my bar is wide, I don't have like the body geometry to lean the bike that much. So like I've never been able to lean the bike, but you know, you look at my teammate from last year, Jack, or 2 years ago, and like he can lean the bike so much, like, and I just can't do that. So yeah.
Last question for you. When you play with the reach of your bike, does that affect how narrow or how wide you run your bars?
Yeah, I'll go wider for shorter and then narrower for longer.
Okay.
But now I'm in like a pretty good reach zone for a lot of my bikes. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, well I think that's it. Last thing I want to check is your height from the ground, if you don't mind. So it's pretty hard to measure, but I'm gonna tell you the number.
Scientific.
About 106.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've done the comparisons, like setting up bikes, I'll do it, but once I get a bike, I go by feel.
How much travel is this fork?
180.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like on a bike that's similar to this, like 180 travel, myself I have 108, but it's funny, it doesn't seem like that much.
So pretty close. And you're a bit taller than me, so. But you ride a bigger bike than I do.
I ride a bigger bike.
You like a 450, 460 reach? Like you're pretty.
455 is like my ideal reach, but with a 35mm stem, and my bars are rolled a little bit more back than you. And also I feel like I run a higher stack to compensate for a longer bike. Like I like the longer wheelbase, but I don't want the reach to be too big either, otherwise I struggle to move like front and back. But yeah, okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's go back home and wrap up the video. As we saw, Jackson, Jesse and my setup are actually quite different, even though we are pretty much the same size and ride similar trails around the world. I guess you can understand how difficult that is for me to make a video about finding the right handlebar width for yourself when us pro rider can't even agree on what's the correct setup. What I would say though is that 800 millimeter is too wide for pretty much everybody. What I encourage you is to trim your handlebar a little bit, maybe 5 millimeter at the time, and go ride trails that you are familiar with and see what works and what doesn't. Trim a little bit until it feels just right, and also give it some time. If you just do one lap, it's not enough to know that this setup works or doesn't for yourself. And I invite you to do the same with the rest of your bike, whereas it's suspension, stack height, bar roll, pretty much everything. Now, a few things about having wide handlebars, and this is like a misconception. Because it's wider doesn't mean that you're gonna be more stable and stronger. The bikes are light enough that having 740 or 780 doesn't mean that you're gonna not be able to steer anymore, or that your bike is gonna steer by itself when it hits a little rock or a little root. One thing is sure, the wider your bar are, the more likely you are to clip a tree. But for me, the big reason to go down to 738 was because I found that I could move the bike very quickly while still keeping stable. And most importantly, 738 was where I felt the strongest on big compression. So whenever there is a big impact, I found that this is when I had the most power to handle that impact. I want to finish that video with kind of like a little fun formula. My shoulder width is basically 41 centimeters. I run 738. So if my mathematics are correct, and you take 738 millimeter divided by 410 millimeter, you get 1.8. So at home, have fun, measure your shoulder, multiply that by 1.8, and let me know if that makes sense with the bar width you like. I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you check out the link down below to Jenson USA to buy your OneUp Components product, and make sure you use that Remy15 on the Propane website for the next couple of weeks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.